Hello guys, today I'll be reviewing Minutes to Midnight by Linkin Park. I do have a little bit of nostalgia for this album because I did become a fan around the time of when this album came out. I became a fan like a few months after the album came out or something in that nature, but I still remember where and when I bought the album, and of course that was Hastings, which is no longer a thing now. That was basically a store where they sold CDs and books, movies, and shirts, and many other things, but I bought my CD there, and I do also have some memories with certain songs, like with No More Sorrow. I remember when I first heard that song for the first time and just being really blown away, especially by Chester's vocals and the chorus especially. And I remember being like in awe during my first listen of the song Given Up, and then of course we have the song What I've Done, which I first heard from, of course, the movie Transformers, directed by Michael Bay. But yeah, I do have many great memories, many interesting memories with this album. So I do still have some attachment to this album. One of those albums that, again, a big part of 2007, 2008, that kind of time in my life, because I do remember listening to this album or certain songs from this album a lot during that time. But anyways, let's go ahead and dive into the album. The album starts off with Wake, and this is an instrumental that leads into Given Up. Now, Given Up, arguably maybe one of their heaviest songs, and of course you have that iconic long scream from Chester towards the middle part of the song, and that's still a part of the song that definitely still blows many people's minds to this day. And this song lyrically is basically about just alienation and just in general just not being happy. And I believe this song was influenced by Chester's situation with rehab and getting out, being finished with that, and basically the feelings he was experiencing after being done with rehab and stuff like that. I could be wrong about that. I could be thinking about a different song, but that's what I've heard. But either way, pretty strong track, and definitely one of the highlights on the album, and I'm sure many people would agree with me on that. But next we have Leave Out All the Rest. For some people, it's one of the highlights on the album. And I like this song, maybe a bit more mainstream or poppy, one of the more mainstream slash poppy songs of the album, but it does, in a way, it does kind of have a rock spirit to it. But overall, I do like the song. It's never been one of my personal favorites, and I know for some people, again, it's one of their favorites, but again, I do like the song overall. But then we get to Bleed It Out, and this song really has a simple, catchy rhythm, and Chester is really giving it his all, really belting it out, especially in the chorus. And Mike and Chester further prove that they have great chemistry, and this song is an example of that. But Bleed It Out, definitely a great track and one of the highlights on the album, and not a bad choice for a single. But then you get to Shadow of the Day, a bit more experimental, one of the bit more experimental songs of the album. And as you listen to the song, you can really feel the emotion from Chester as he's delivering the lyrics, such as in the verses. Just one of those songs that really shows how great Chester's melodic voice is, and the way he evoked emotion or really put it onto a record is just really something else, and further shows why he was one of the greatest vocalists of this time. And Shadow of the Day is overall a pretty solid song. But then we get to the song What I've Done. Now, many people, for their first listen of the song was, of course, from Transformers. And I'll admit, I am one of those people too. But yeah, kind of one of the anthems of the album too, and one of the best known songs on the album too. But overall, it's a pretty good song. Maybe a song that I've heard more than I needed to, but either way, it's still a pretty solid song overall. It's anthemic, catchy, and it has that memorable chorus too. But next we get to a song called Hands Held High. Now, this is kind of an interesting song. If I remember correctly, lyrically, the song speaks against the Bush administration, and basically it's a call for people to take action, or citizens. Maybe I'm thinking of a different song, but lyrically a bit more political, you could say, for Linkin Park. And I like Mike Shinoda's vocals in this song. I mean, Lyrically, maybe not the most mind-blowing thing in the world, but you do get some pretty interesting lyrics in the song for sure, especially when you're really paying attention to it. And you do get some piano in the song, a bit more melodic song in general on the album. But even when I was getting into Linkin Park, this was always a song that gripped me in a way, a song that's always intrigued me for some reason. And I thought it was kind of one of the underrated songs of the album too. But overall, I think it's a pretty solid song that I think is kind of overlooked. Sure, maybe not musically the most complex thing in the world, but it doesn't have to be either. Overall, I think it's a pretty solid track. But then we get to maybe one of my favorite Linkin Park songs, No More Sorrow. Vocally, one of Chester's best moments on the album, especially when you get towards the middle with the hypocrites. And then we also have the chorus too, where vocally he's just really giving it his all, further proving again why he is one of the greatest when it comes to this time in music. I love this song. I mean, not sure how else to put the song into words in terms of my thoughts and feelings, but if you haven't heard this song in a while, definitely give it another listen. I think it's easily one of the highlights on the album, and maybe one of their best songs in general. I mean, all around, just a solid track. But then you get to Valentine's Day, a bit of a more quote-unquote poppy song on the album. It is a bit more melodic too, and it's an okay song. Not a song that I really even think to return to or anything, but again, not a bad song. And for what it is, I think it's decent. But then we get to the song that even ever since the first time I heard this album, it's always been my least favorite on the album, personally. That song is, of course, In Between. I'm not sure what people generally think of this song or what the fan base generally thinks of this song, but I don't know. This song has never really gripped me as much as other songs on the album. I mean, when you're listening to it, I mean, it's not bad. It's not unlistenable by any means, but it's just a song that's never really grabbed me all that much in general. Because I mean, musically, it's a little bit different, you could say, on the album, but the song for me just didn't do enough to really leave much of a lasting impression on me. Is probably the best way I can put it. But next we have the song In Pieces, and I think this song is maybe one of the highlights of the second half of the album. Musically, not a whole lot to write home about. It doesn't really offer a whole lot in terms of much that is new for this album, but either way, a pretty good song. Again, I do think it's one of the highlights on the second half of the album, but either way, still a decent song. But then we get to the song, The Little Things Give You Away. Now, in the past, from like what I've seen from like comments and opinions and stuff like that, some people either really like this song or some people are kind of just in the middle about it. That's what I commonly see with this song, but at least that I've seen. For me, I'm kind of in the middle with this song. It's okay, but kind of like with In Between, it's a song that's never really grabbed me all that much, or really left much of a lasting impression as much as the other songs on the album. I do like it more than In Between, but it's never been one of my personal favorites on the album. But I do think that Chester vocally sounds pretty good in this song, though. But again, he always sounds good. When does he sound bad? Let's be honest here. But anyways, let's go ahead and dive into the rating here. If I had to rate this album, I'd probably give it maybe an 8 out of 10. My rating could change at any time, but for now, I'll go for an 8 out of 10. Overall, pretty solid album. Not as good as Meteora. Meteora is still one of my favorite albums of all time and my favorite Linkin Park album, so sure, you can make the argument that this album is kind of a disappointment when you compare it to Meteora, or especially since that's the follow-up to that album, but disappointment or not, I still think it's a pretty solid album and an album worth checking out, even if it's not as good as the albums before it, at least in my opinion. But yeah, for now, again, I'm going to go with an 8 out of 10 for Minutes to Midnight by Linkin Park. Anyways, let me know your thoughts on the album. Do you love it? Do you hate it? How's it compare to their other albums for you personally? And all that good stuff. But anyways, thanks for watching. Please leave a comment and a like, subscribe. Have a nice day, and take care.